The light we're talking about today, this is how small it is compared to my first ever COB light. We have seen quite a number of lights being innovated to the point of being almost unbelievably compact coming from Zhiyun. It's a cool point to brag about in a review, but when it's this unconventional of a design, there's a good chance it can fall into the unfortunate category of form over function. This is not one of those times. This is shrinking what's typically so cumbersome that I won't even bother bringing into something which I wouldn't mind just packing along even as a standby. For this new X100 RGB, the form factor shouldn't come as a stranger because it is the same form factor as the original bicolor MOLUS X100 light, which I've reviewed almost 2 years ago. Now, for that same footprint, you've got RGB. There's both HSI and RGB modes for dialing in your color. There's also an app for doing that wirelessly if you prefer, but back in bicolor mode, this being a full color fixture now has two major benefits. Green magenta tint adjustments is a huge one for me. It's quite a requirement when trying to match the outputs from different fixtures, and the second benefit is an expanded CCT range, 2500 Kelvin all the way up to 10,000 Kelvin. Now, it would make sense if that was it in terms of upgrades, which is usually the case when talking about the RGB version of a light that's also available in bicolor. But we're actually not done yet. Before we even move on to all the new accessories for this light, there's actually 3 more ways Zhiyun has improved upon the fixture itself. The first is how low-end dimming is better on the X100 RGB. When you go from 0 to 1%, it does it a lot more gently than the bicolor X100. Second is how music mode is a lot more responsive on the RGB model. I can only guess that means they've upgraded the processors in the RGB version, because improvement number 3 is how when you're on battery, you've got to turn the select dial a certain amount in order to turn the light on after pressing the power button. This is to prevent the light from accidentally turning on inside your bag in case something was squashing against the power button and you just so happen to have left the battery attached. This feature is a huge thing for safety, and I'm genuinely glad they've done it this way. You might feel that's too many steps to turn a light on, but something really smart about this is if you're powering this over DC or USB power delivery, it skips the 2-factor power on sequence. Just press the power button and it turns on. It's also got this semi-hidden live power mode, which will have it automatically turn on upon receiving power. It only works for powering options aside from the battery, of course, and all this really is just getting started with how this light has evolved from the original X100 to be an even more useful tool, because if you have not noticed yet, Zhiyun co-designed this light with filmmaker Cam Mackey, and as a result of that, he has pushed for some very sensible additions to this product, and it's not just about the features, it's the way they're implemented as well. I don't usually talk about the aesthetics of a lighting fixture, but this particular one's a bit too pretty to ignore. The visual theme reflects Cam Mackey's identity. There is a 2-tone brown and green motif going on, very earthy colors, and they've gone the extra step of having these beautiful colors flow over to the battery as well. The backplate is finished with a soft touch synthetic leather. Completely unnecessary, but I love it so much. It's really quite a bonus cosmetically, but what's truly the star of this new kit here are the new modifiers they've made for this. This, of course, isn't the first time we've heard of softboxes, Fresnels, barn doors, and spotlight modifiers, but I don't think I've ever seen variants of these so tailored to preserve the compact nature of the light. The one accessory which has grown in size is the softbox, and that's actually a good thing if we're talking about diffusers. I remember the original X100 did come with a mini softbox, but it was so physically small it couldn't give you very soft light. It was really just there to take the edge off your shadows. This is now a 40cm softbox. It's quite deep for its size, and if we just kill my studio lights for just a moment, you can see it does turn your very small X100 into a rather nice soft source if you're lighting something up close. The light emitting area is comparable to something like a 1x1 panel, and it's actually a great softbox. There's an inner diffusion layer, so no hotspot in the middle, and it comes with a honeycomb grid. I used to shove the old mini softbox in the X100 carrying case. This bigger one is not gonna fit in the case anymore, but this was Kamaki's idea. The X100 RGB case has straps on the side of it, which is perfect for carrying the softbox with, so you can still travel it as one unit to hold on to. Something else that's been included thanks to him are the barn doors. These barn doors attach magnetically onto the Fresnel, so you do need to attach the Fresnel first before you can use barn doors, but these door flaps are big enough to actually shape the light coming out of a Fresnel. These are actually the same barn doors which came on the M20C, but let's take a moment to appreciate how incredible this Fresnel is. This thing is impossibly thin for a Fresnel. You can't spot or flood it, it's a fixed beam angle, but this is a 1-inch thick Fresnel, weighs 95 grams, and actually works. It converges all that output into a more concentrated area, and you get about 2 stops more peak brightness compared to open face. I much prefer this over a reflector because it's a much more pleasing natural fall off towards the edges. My absolute favorite, however, is this $99 spotlight accessory. And this thing's wonderful for a few reasons. The one looking us in the face is how this is, again, absolutely tiny for a spotlight. It's actually smaller than many camera lenses, but yet it's still full-featured. You get your precision cutters, it ships with 10 gobos, which go onto the holder magnetically, and this is definitely the closest focusing spotlight I've ever used. So big or small projection, this little guy does both. It's something I'm really excited about because I really love using spotlights, but what dissuades me all the time is how heavy they typically are. It usually involves a lot of weight over your head on a light stand. This here is a full-featured spotlight setup, which was light enough for me to balance on a gimbal. I know lights aren't meant to go on gimbals, but when you think about it, it's one way to motorize your fixture. And you can get these cool sweeping light effects which you wouldn't imagine to attempt this way with any conventional fixture. It's a very friendly light to mount anywhere because of its size, but when you look at it throwing out 100 watts with no cables running from it, no control box, it's quite remarkable seeing just an independent little fixture that works entirely on its own. I initially thought I'd have to forgive some of the shortcomings on the MOLUS series of lights because of how small they are, but instead of being limitations, that small size is actually the biggest enabling factor. How else was I supposed to put a light with a spotlight attachment onto a slider to simulate a moving beam of sunlight? It's incredible to be able to use it in all these unique ways, but when time comes to fit in with a conventional workflow, just throw on the Bowen's mount adapter and it's business as usual. So it's really not form over function this time, it's genuinely form enabling function. For anyone who's interested in picking one of these up, I do have a link in description, and Zhiyun has provided a coupon code for my viewers which gives you 10% off. It's ZYCheng10 on the screen here. There's 2 kits to choose from. The Pro kit would be the one which includes all the accessories I've shown in this video except the spotlight mount, which is sold as a standalone accessory. And with that, I guess I'll be seeing you around.